The first rays of morning filtered through the dusty windows, golden light scattering across the makeshift bed where Freyen and Becky lay tangled in the sheets. Outside, the world was still, eerily so, but inside this quiet cabin on the edge of the ruins, there was warmth. A fleeting, fragile kind. Freyen stirred first. Her dark eyes opened slowly, heavy with exhaustion and awe. For a moment, she didn't move. Her gaze traced the outline of Becky's face, soft, peaceful, vulnerable in a way Freyen rarely got to see. Freyen's heart clenched. Not in fear this time. In gratitude. She ran her fingers gently through Becky's hair, tucking a loose strand behind her ear. Becky's lips were parted slightly, and her hand rested against Freyen's chest, fingers curled loosely like she was holding on to something in her dreams. Freyen leaned in and kissed her forehead, slow, reverent. Becky stirred with a soft hum, eyes blinking open. "Morning," she murmured, voice hoarse and sleep-heavy. "Morning," Freyen replied, smiling. "You snore, by the way." Becky scoffed and buried her face in Freyen's neck. "Liar." Freyen laughed, arms wrapping around her. "Okay, maybe just a little wheeze." It was adorable. Becky smirked against her skin. "You're lucky I like you." Freyen's heart skipped. The words were simple, teasing even, but the weight behind them pressed on her chest in the best way. "I'm lucky you stayed," Freyen whispered. "After everything." Becky lifted her head. "You think I'd leave after a night like that?" Freyen bit her bottom lip, eyes darkening slightly. "Last night felt like the end of the world didn't matter anymore." "It didn't," Becky said, leaning in. "Because you're my world now." And then she kissed her, slow, deep, full of something more than hunger. It was soft at first, but it didn't stay that way. The cabin warmed with their shared heat. Becky sat in Freyen's lap, her legs straddling her as they kissed and touched, not with the desperation of last night, but with the ache of knowing this peace couldn't last. Freyen traced lazy patterns on Becky's back while Becky nibbled at her neck, grinning when Freyen shivered. "I like seeing you like this," Becky whispered, voice thick with desire. "All soft. All mine." Freyen smiled, flushed. "I'm always yours. I just didn't know how to be." Becky kissed her again, and it lingered, heat rising, hands roaming, until both were breathing heavy and clinging to each other like the world might fall apart any second. Eventually, they collapsed into each other's arms again, tangled up, breathless and messy. "We should probably get dressed," Becky said, nuzzling into her. "We should," Freyen nagged. Later, Becky wore one of Freyen's oversized flannel shirts, sleeves rolled up as she rummaged through a stash of old canned goods. Freyen leaned against the counter, watching her with an amused smile. "I feel like I'm in a weird domestic dream," Becky said. "If only this tuna wasn't 5 years expired." "I could make coffee," Freyen offered. "You? Making coffee?" Becky gave her a look. "Now that I have to see." 10 minutes later, Freyen had burned the pot, and Becky was doubled over laughing. "You're terrible at this," she said between giggles. Freyen mock pouted. "I've been busy surviving." "Well, if you ever wanna impress me again, start with instant noodles and we'll work up to French roast." Freyen stepped closer, sliding an arm around her waist. "You're already impressed." Becky raised an eyebrow. "True. But it's the effort that counts." They sat outside on the porch, legs tangled beneath a sun-bleached blanket, sipping weak tea and nibbling on energy bars like it was a breakfast date. Birds chirped in the distance, the air unnaturally still for what they knew lurked just beyond the trees. "Do you think we'll ever go back to normal?" Becky asked softly. Freyen was quiet for a moment. "No. But I don't want normal anymore. Not if it means going back to a world where I didn't have you." Becky turned to her, eyes glossy. "Say that again." Freyen smiled. "I don't want the world without you in it." Becky reached for her hand and intertwined tea. "Then let's build a new one. Just us." They kissed again, a slow, deep promise. Cliffhanger for Part 1 ending, the static. Inside the cabin, the old radio crackled to life. Static, at first. Then a fractured voice. "Any survivors? Anyone near the Northwest Corridor?" Please respond. 𝖗𝖊𝖇𝖊𝖈𝖆𝖆 Becky froze, cup slipping from her hand and crashing to the floor. Freyen stood up fast. Was that? 𝖗𝖊𝖇𝖊𝖈𝖆𝖆, Becky whispered, her voice cracking. She's alive. Freyen's face hardened. Then we're not staying here anymore. Outside, in the shadows of the trees, something watched. Something not quite dead. And not quite human. They moved quickly. Within the hour, Freyen had packed what little they had, spare ammo, the last of their food, a single blood pack she'd kept hidden for emergencies. Becky moved on autopilot, still shaken by the voice crackling through the radio. Her hands trembled as she tied her boots, but her eyes were sharp. She wasn't the same girl who'd cried alone in the dark weeks ago. Not anymore. I know that voice, she said for the 5th time. It was 𝖗𝖊𝖇𝖊𝖈𝖆𝖆. It had to be. Freyen nodded, slinging a rifle over her shoulder. If she's out there, we'll find her. The forest outside was damp with dew, the dirt slick beneath their boots as they moved through the ruins of what once might have been a suburban street, now overgrown, half swallowed by nature and ash. Silence stretched between them, broken only by birds, wind, and the crunch of broken glass underfoot. As they walked, Becky suddenly stopped. You think she's changed? Freyen turned. I don't know. She was tough, Becky murmured, biting her lip. But not like this. Not the way the world is now. Freyen reached out, touching Becky's cheek gently. You weren't like this either. But look at you now. I'm still scared. So am I. Freyen paused. But we go anyway. They walked in step after that, shoulders brushing, hearts pounding. It wasn't long before they realized they weren't alone. About an hour into their journey, Becky felt it first, the hairs on her arms rising. Freyen had gone still, hand gripping her weapon. Then came the whistle. A low, sharp sound, followed by a voice, that's far enough. From the trees, shadows moved. A group of 5 emerged. Tired faces. Ragged clothing. All armed. Freyen stepped forward slowly, raising her hands slightly. We're just passing through. A familiar voice called out. Well, well. Look who finally made it out of the mansion. Becky's breath hitched. Freyen's shoulders tensed. From behind the group, a man stepped forward. Tall. Lean. Tan skin, messy black hair, a scar that curved under his eye like a hook. He looked tired, but that grin on his face? Smug. Dangerous. Too familiar. Billy, Freyen muttered. Becky looked between them. You know him? Freyen didn't answer. Billy stepped closer, ignoring the group behind him. Didn't think I'd see you again, Freen. Last time I did, you were bleeding out and screaming. Freyen's jaw clenched. You shouldn't be here. I could say the same, Billy said, tilting his head. But you're not the only one who survived. He glanced at Becky, and the smile twitched. And you must be the new one. Watch it, Freyen warned Lily. Billy raised his hands mockingly. Relax. I'm not here to take your girl. I'm here to warn you. Becky narrowed her eyes. Warn us about WH. Billy's grin faded. The signal you heard? That place is a trap. Scene, a history unearthed. They made camp under a broken gas station awning, surrounded by burned-out cars and overgrowth. The group watched Becky and Freyen warily, but Billy stayed close. Too close. Freyen didn't speak to him for a long time. Finally, after Becky drifted off to check the perimeter, she turned to him. What are you doing here? Billy shrugged. Surviving. What else? Freyen glared. You left me. You let them take me. You. I thought you were dead, he said quickly. You were turning. You begged me to end it. Freyen went silent. He looked at her, softer now. But you didn't die. You changed. That's rare. I kept it hidden, Freyen admitted. Even from her. Billy's expression darkened. You shouldn't. She doesn't need to carry that. She already is. You love her, don't you? Freyen said nothing. Billy looked away. Then you need to tell her. Before it tells her first. Becky hadn't gone far. She crouched behind a rusted-out vending machine, heart pounding. She hadn't meant to eavesdrop, but the moment she heard Freyen's voice drop into that haunted register, she froze. She didn't hear everything. But she heard enough. "You're changing. Even from her." Before it tells her first, Billy's grin faded. "The signal you heard? That place is a trap." Scene, A History Unearthed. They made camp under a broken gas station awning, surrounded by burned-out cars and overgrowth. The group watched Becky and Freyen warily, but Billy stayed close. Too close. Freyen didn't speak to him for a long time. Finally, after Becky drifted off to check the perimeter, she turned to him. "What are you doing here?" Billy shrugged. "Surviving. What else?" Freyen glared. "You left me. You let them take me. You." "I thought you were dead," he said quickly. "You were turning. You begged me to end it." Freyen went silent. He looked at her, softer now. "But you didn't die. You changed. That's rare." "I kept it hidden," Freyen admitted. "Even from her." Billy's expression darkened. "You shouldn't. She doesn't need to carry that. She already is. You love her, don't you?" Freyen said nothing. Billy looked away. "Then you need to tell her. Before it tells her first." Becky hadn't gone far. She crouched behind a rusted-out vending machine, heart pounding. She hadn't meant to eavesdrop, but the moment she heard Freyen's voice drop into that haunted register, she froze. She didn't hear everything. But she heard enough. "You're changing. Even from her." Before it tells her first, Becky kept her distance after overhearing them. Her mind swirled with pieces of a puzzle she hadn't even known existed. Freyen's changing? Into what? And why didn't she tell me? She tried to rationalize it. They were still healing. Still trying to understand this strange, fragile thing between them. But secrets. In this world, secrets were lethal. When Freyen approached her later that night by the flickering campfire, Becky didn't meet her eyes. "I thought we agreed, no walls between us," Becky said quietly, voice low, almost breaking. Freyen's throat tightened. "Bex." "I heard you," Becky interrupted, standing. Her face was caught between hurt and fury. "Back there. With Billy." Freyen closed her eyes. "Damn it." Becky took a shaky breath. "What is it, Freyen? What are you hiding from me?" Freyen sat down slowly, elbows resting on her knees. The firelight made her face look older, haunted. "It started after that raid. When we got separated. I was bit, bad. It should have killed me." Becky's heart sank. "But it didn't," Freyen continued. "Instead, I healed. Faster than I should have. Then came the headaches. The cravings. And the rage." Becky stood frozen, processing. "I'm not like the infected," Freyen said. "But I'm not fully human anymore either. Something in me is changing. Evolving. It's slow, but it's there. I can feel it under my skin." Silence stretched between them like a wound. "Why didn't you tell me?" Becky whispered. "I was AF." The others fired at the beast, but it barely flinched. Freyen roared, slashing at its neck with a broken blade, her arms shaking. The infected snarled, clawing her back, blood sprayed. Becky's scream echoed as she ran forward. "Freyen!" Billy grabbed her. "She's got this, wait." But Becky didn't stop. She pulled her handgun, aimed carefully, and fired 3 shots directly into the infected's eye. It screeched and stumbled back, enough for Freyen to stab deep into its exposed throat. The monster collapsed. Freyen staggered, panting, blood running from a gash in her side. Becky caught her before she fell. "You idiot," Becky whispered, voice shaking. "You could have died." Freyen looked at her, dazed but alive. "You said you love me. That means I can't let anything take you from me." Becky hugged her, heart pounding. Billy walked up, eyes narrowed. "Yeah. Definitely not human anymore." Later that night, while Freyen slept off the injuries, Billy sat beside Becky at the edge of the gas station roof. "She doesn't know the full truth," he said suddenly. Becky tensed. "What do you mean?" "She's evolving, yeah. But not like the others. Not like the ones that turn. Becky frowned. Then what? She's becoming something new. Something the infected fear. She's part of a mutation chain. And the people who set that trap we're heading toward? They want her. Bad. Becky turned sharply. Why? Billy's eyes were grave. Because if they control her. The cure. The next morning, Becky woke to the sound of wind rustling broken tarps and the creak of metal. She turned toward Freyen, who lay shirtless beside her, chest rising slowly, bandages across her ribs stained but holding. Becky brushed a strand of hair from Freyen's face, her fingers trembling. A part of her still couldn't believe how fiercely Freyen fought that mutant. And the way her eyes had glowed. She looked human. But not quite. Billy's words from the night before echoed like a curse. Greater than if they control her. They control the cure. Becky's stomach churned. Freyen woke later, finding Becky quiet, lost in thought. She sat up slowly with a wince, the healing faster than it should have been. You're thinking about what he said, Freyen muttered, reading her like a map. Becky didn't deny it. Is it true? She asked gently. Are you the cure? Freyen's jaw worked for a moment, then she sighed. I don't know. But they thought I might be. That's why Charlotte, her voice cracked. That's why she gave me up. Becky turned sharply. What? Freyen nodded slowly. She found out I didn't turn after the bite. She told them. The militia. Sold me out to the science camp for a handful of rations and a one-way ticket out of hell. Becky stared in disbelief. Freyen laughed bitterly. I trusted her. I loved her. And she turned me in like I was nothing. Becky reached out, gently taking Freyen's hand. You were never nothing. She just didn't deserve you. They sat like that for a while. Then Becky leaned forward, resting her forehead to Freyen's. I don't care what's in your blood. You're mine. Not theirs. Not anyone else's. The group finally reached the location where the signal had been traced. A broken-down science outpost surrounded by fallen fences and scorched ground. The scent of chemicals hung in the air, and scorch marks told stories of battles lost. Billy slowed his steps. This was it. Ground zero for a cure attempt. Before it all burned. The gate was unguarded. Too quiet. Inside, Freyen's eyes narrowed. There were people here recently. And then, almost like an answer, a voice came through the broken speakers above. Greater than welcome home, Subject 13. Freyen froze. Becky grabbed her arm. What the hell is that? Billy pulled his gun, face pale. Run. Now. But still doors slid shut behind them. The ground shook beneath their feet. And a woman's voice echoed through the facility, mechanical, cold. Greater than retrieve the specimen. Use force if necessary. From the shadows, armored figures emerged. Not infected, humans. Heavily armed. Their target? Freyen. Becky fired first. Her shots echoed down the corridors as chaos erupted. Freyen moved like lightning, dodging bullets, knocking down one of the soldiers with an unnatural growl. Her eyes glowed golden again, brighter this time. But there were too many. They cornered Becky. Then. Stop, Billy shouted. The room. Becky turned to see him holding a small black device, some kind of remote, his hand shaking. I didn't want it to go like this, he said, voice breaking. But they made me a deal. You help us bring in the hybrid, you get immunity. Food. Safety. I couldn't say no. Becky stared at him. You sold her out? Billy's eyes flicked to Freyen. I tried to warn you. I tried. But they'll kill us all if we don't give them what they want. You coward, Freyen snarled, stepping forward, but her legs gave out. The injection in her neck was fast, expertly placed by one of the guards. She fell, body spasming. Becky screamed, rushing to her. Freyen.